Why on God's green earth then, if we run with your thread of thought there, you see where success is at and you see how it's being done. Like you said, you're your own investigative reporter, which I love that. And then people will see it, you're going this way with success, and then people will go and do the exact opposite.
It's typically group mentality, right? Herd mentality. They all want to be together and be cool, right? And this is the way, right? I never wanted to follow that way. I was always on the outside of that. I was always criticized for that because we were different, right? We did it different. We thought different. But our success spoke for itself, right?
And that's the part that blows my mind. Our dear friend Johnny Hopper always says, if you find yourself on the side of the majority, you might want to reconsider your ideology. And like to your point though, Tony, here you guys are extremely successful over here doing it differently. And I say this to Derek all the time. We're supposed to be the smartest species on earth, but yet we continue to make the same repetitive mistakes. And my biased opinion is, I think so many people are petrified of success that they'll do anything they can to self-sabotage. And I'll have an adult conversation with anybody about this if you want to keep it amicable. If you're not so petrified of success and you see, we'll use yourself as an example, if you see what they're doing and it's being done differently and the results back it up, then why do you continue to go over here with abysmal results? If that doesn't validate that people are petrified of success, I don't know what else does. And it's funny. I've talked to Jeff Ward about this. I've talked to so many of these, Jeff Stanton and all these guys where it's like when we weren't racing, and Derek, you know, we're talking about even today, they're out running and they're swimming and biking. You can call them a triathlete. You can call them triathlon training. But to your point though, low heart rate, I say this all the time. So many people make the mistake of thinking the only way to build speed is to do speed work. Well, if that's the case, then if I were to offer you a $100 bill and give you 2 bike options to get to 60 miles an hour, you can choose from a 65 or a 450. Every person would choose the 450. Well, why is that? Well, duh, Rob, it's got a bigger piston. Okay. Well, on the human being, what is your human piston? Your strength base. Hey, what's the biggest limiting factor on a motorcycle once the CC displacement is there? Air fuel mixture. Just go to altitude. So, okay, your aerobic engine is your carburetor. Your strength base is your size of your piston. Well, if it's easier to go faster when you're strong and it's easier to go faster when you have a bigger engine, right? So now you've got bigger piston, bigger carburetor equals bigger muscle base, strength base, and aerobic engine equals faster top end speed, longer you can go before you get tired. And just for the sake of the listeners, I promise you, Tony and I did not talk before this call. Because Derek, you've heard me say this a million times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've talked.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
You've been kind enough. You and I've texted a few times. I obviously reached out to you based on the last situation that you've gone through. But yes, sir, you're exactly right. And I just want to make sure this is why I'm balding, man. This is why I'm balding right here. It appears on the outside looking in that when it comes to accountability and responsibility, it seems like you set the bar very high for both Mike and Jeff. I don't know. I can't speak for Derek. Derek can articulate on his own. On my side, as soon as somebody goes out and they shit the bed, the first thing that happens is the first complaint is, I got arm pump and I got tired. So now, of course, now the parents look at us and go, obviously your program doesn't work for my little Johnny. And I go, well, hold on here. We've trained now for 3-4 months. We've done some testing. You've seen the incremental improvement. You've seen the improvement in sleep. You've seen improvement in all the recovery. Top end speed is there. Consistency is there when we're not at the track. Now, how come all of a sudden when we go to the track and there's 35 other good riders, now all of a sudden it's a fitness issue? How did you approach, let's say Mike or Jeff shit the bed on the start, which was obviously very rare. Maybe they blew the start and couldn't get through the crowd, or maybe Mike or Jeff did very, very well on the start and kind of went backwards. Rare, but let's say it happened. How did you approach that with them?
It was always the kind of our policy for the most part. If you gave it 100% effort and you finished 1, 3, 5, whatever, that's fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's if there's no effort. Now we have a problem, right? And there's always going to be another race and another race and another race. So it's like, I mean, the goal is just to build them in their mind, confident enough to get starts and know that they have the fitness and the strength to stay there, and they have the ability to battle with anybody that wants to bring the fight to the table, right? And as long as you can keep building them to that kind of mindset, you got good warriors that are ready to race anybody in the world.
Derek and I talk about this quite often. I personally believe that you built, I call the confidence the slippery C word. Because if I say to you, okay, you're a badass on a 125, I'm gonna shrink you down to a 65 or an 85 size, and I want you to line up. How do you think you'll do? Oh, I think I'll kill it. Okay, now I'm gonna put you on a growth machine, and I'm gonna have you line up at the Outdoor Nationals this weekend. How do you think you'll do? Oh, I think I'll shit the bed. Well, where did the confidence go? 15 seconds ago, you were very confident. Now it just slipped through your hand like sand. How did you approach confidence? Like, and it's kind of a twofold question. What would be something that would have jeopardized the boys' confidence? And then how did you reestablish confidence when things went the wrong direction? Were you able to nip it in the bud quickly, or was it a long process?
It's funny that you said that about what you're saying. When Mike was a kid, he went to a Gary Bailey school, right? And he went over there and he had 85, right? They were doing the stuff. And Gary Bailey posed the question as everybody was sitting down. And he said, how many of you here think that you would be able to go to an outdoor national, same words, right? And who thinks that they could actually accomplish it and be in the top 10? And nobody said a freaking word except for Mike Alessi. Raised his hand and said, top 10? I'm going to go there to win. And he said, he's like, I can get top 10 today on a super mini. But he said that because he knew, because he's already been to these tracks, right? He knew what his level was already, right? And in those days, a lot of those participants weren't razor focused on racing. They still had a lot of things that they did outside the box that was not helpful, right? Mm-hmm. And so he knew there was only maybe 5 or 6 guys that were really good, right? That were really committed and dedicated. And so he said it with confidence. And I always used to say, like in my notes, that this guy is the most confident rider I've ever seen, right? And so it was very, very hard to deviate that, especially as an amateur, right? The first time I ever saw him lose confidence was when he had a big crash in the whoops, right? Because lack of experience, trying to do stuff and didn't have the knowledge or the backup or the know-how to do it. That was the first time, and that was a key chink in the armor, right? That's when it first started, right? And that's why I tell riders, like I remember telling Ryder D Francisco's dad when he was a kid, I was like, hey, I don't care how much you have to spend. You have to spend $100,000. You better go hire somebody before Ryder gets to pro and make sure he hits whoops, and is confident in whoops. Like to the level of the first lap of practice, he goes out and skims them right away at a Supercross. You got to get to that level of confidence, right? And again, that goes back to where our key error in the whole thing, right? And we should have been riding Supercross way younger, way more often. We would have had a lot more experience, which then leads to better technique, which then leads to confidence, right?